Right. Back at it. Chapter 9. With the knitting circle craze swelling into a national obsession, and with rapists disappearing faster than capitalists at an ethics contest, federal lawmakers step in. Senator Richard Dick, square-jawed, bullet-headed, dead-eyed, and with a smile only a lobbyist could love, delivers a speech which concludes, "We must ban knitting needles immediately. We have never faced criminal terrorists as vicious as these lunatics who want to destroy our precious freedom and democracy." Senator Hassman, the senator voted least likely to be allowed to have children sit in his lap, as well as the senator most likely to violate his multiple restraining orders, continues. "And our fun. You don't go far enough by half, Senator Dick. It's not surprising that you're soft on terrorism. We must also ban crochet hooks, plus all wool, cotton, and even acrylic yarns. We must immediately initiate sheep eradication programs. Even though that is bound to affect my social life. Starve these illegal enemy combatants of the means to commit their terrorist atrocities." Senator Eve Parkhurst, who was appointed to her position after the death of her predecessor, and who knows the lobbyists will vote her out as soon as they can, says, "Those who would choose security over sweaters deserve neither. Knitting has been a fundamental right since the beginning of this nation, a proud tradition begun by our foremothers. And furthermore, if we outlaw knitting needles, only outlaws will have knitting needles." Every woman in this building opposes this ban. The acting head of the Senate, who looks like he's been dead for several hundred years, says, "Since we're unanimous, we don't need any debate. The ban passes." Debate does, however, break out in every corner of every city and town across the country. Everyone takes sides, and not always the sides you'd think. Picture this. Dozens of people, many wearing camouflage, all carrying guns and knitting needles, sit on folding chairs in a room lined with wood paneling, stuffed animal heads, including a couple of children's plush toy stuffed animal heads, among the deer and elk, and a big NRA logo. They are listening to a speech. The speaker, wearing a bullwinkle and moose hat, waves his fist and shouts, "Today they take our knitting needles. Tomorrow our rocket-propelled grenades. We must oppose this creeping fascism." At a meeting across town, a tall, slender man stands at a lectern, wearing a suit and tie. He holds a copy of the Constitution and copies of books both by William F. Buckley and Noam Chomsky to let the audience know he's well-read and an intellectual, and open-minded. Underneath his unbuttoned suit coat, he wears a Heinz 57 t-shirt to make sure the audience knows he's also a regular guy who knows how to chill out and have fun. His audience consists of 4 bibliophiles, 2 homeless people coming in out of the rain, and a couple of teenagers in the back making out, and a radio and television crew from NPR and C-SPAN respectively. He pontificates to the mostly empty chairs. "I see nothing in the Constitution that guarantees the right to bear knitting needles. Bear arms, yes. Bear children, of course, but not knitting needles." One of the homeless people raises her hand and mumbles something. The speaker points to her. "You have a question. Madam, please speak up." She asks, "Why does he get a pitcher of water and I don't? I demand my rights." Or picture this. A paved road travels to the horizon between fields of tasseled corn. Old skid marks weave across fields of asphalt. A dotted yellow line travels till it disappears in heat waves. A Ford Fiesta zooms by so fast you can barely make out the paired bumper stickers on the back. Jesus saves and knitting needles still a beating heart. Soon after, an ancient Dodge pickup chugs by, this with a single sticker on its bumper. "You can have my knitting needles when you pry them from my cold, dead fingers." It passes slowly enough for you to spot a small, blue-haired head barely higher than the steering wheel and a knitting needle rack in the pickup's rear window. Or picture this. It's Oscar night, and elegance prevails. From the red carpets to the overdramatic music to all the stars decked out in their really fucking expensive designer outfits, the camera pans across a row, revealing to the millions of television viewers their heroes. Heroes, celebrities, you say tomato, I say tomato. Susan Sarandon, Barbra Streisand, Tom Hanks, Matt Damon, and Tim Robbins all wearing small wool strings pinned to their lapels with tiny, solid 24-karat gold knitting needles. As happens so often in governmental wars on inanimate objects, The government's war on yarn leads to some unintended consequences and unforeseen circumstances. Two customs officers at the Oakland docks, brothers named Herman and Melvin, don't quite work so hard as the other officers. They mainly spend their time co-authoring what they hope will be the great American novel. It's about a mad whale who relentlessly pursues a one-legged sea captain. Their first draft has been about a one-legged whale who relentlessly pursues a mad sea captain until they realize the obvious problem. How do you tell a mad sea captain from one who is sane? The novel begins. "Call me Ishmael," he wailed. That's pretty much as far as they've gotten. Nevertheless, they are madly scribbling notes when one of their field officers, a bright young woman named Deli, brings in her list of U.S. inbound manifests on the allotment of containers of the three are supposed to inspect. The brothers don't look up from their scribbling as they say in unison, "Begin." She does, reading aloud page after page, describing imported junk. They never stop scribbling. She gets to the last page. "Here we have a container of TNT being sent to Domestic Terrorism Inc. in Rexburg, Ohio." They keep scribbling. "A load of anthrax ampoules being sent to white American heroes, otherwise known as WA." They keep scribbling. "One full container of heroin, 99% pure, being sent from Mr. Big to some certain offices in Langley, Virginia." Herman waves his hand dismissively. "Two containers labeled fissionable material sent from Al-Qaeda Central to the local Al-Qaeda franchise in Boger City, North Carolina." Melvin asks, "Why are you wasting our time with this stuff? Anything else?" Deli takes a deep breath, then says quickly and quietly as she can, almost mumbling, "One more, a shipment of yarn and needles from..." Herman and Melville simultaneously leap to their feet and cry, "Confiscate that container! Alert Homeland Security!" In the Mexican desert, near the border with Arizona, two hippies stand next to a car. One of them is holding a bunch of knitting needles. He says, "Well, what do you do when you smuggle weed, man?" The other responds, "I put it in the tires, dude. They never check there." An hour later, their car crawls along the road with 4 flat tires, knitting needles piercing the rubber. Bummer, man. A man wearing a long coat and loitering in Washington Square Park in New York City hisses softly, "Spikes, string, I got it all, man." In a basement in Arcata, California, 1,000-watt grow lamps blaze over a scene of cotton plants. Upstairs, a woman spins yarn. She proudly tells her friend, This strain is called White Widow." A man is being hauled across his front yard by a pair of police officers. A bashful yet beautiful sheep peeks out of his front door. The man pleads, "But it was only for personal use." Hollywood knows a good thing when it sees it. It doesn't take long for the American remake of The Girl with a Knitted Dragon Sweater to hit the big screen. The movie stars Daniel Craig as Nick, and, well, it doesn't really matter who the women in the film are, so long as they have big breasts. The co-directors, Lars Van Trier and David Fincher, both deeply troubled by what they perceive as the muddled message of this movement, "Stop rape or face the wrath of the knitting circle," decide to clarify their message by putting out a series of promotional posters for the film that feature various actors. Since they are women, their names don't really matter, do they? Nude, with the posters trailing into suggestive darkness a couple of inches below the women's navels. In these posters, Daniel Craig stands fully clothed, one arm protectively around a woman's torso, but not, of course, covering her breasts, and the other brandishing a knitting needle. When women complain that these posters demean women, Lars Van Trier issues a press release declaring that he will not pander to the whims or demands of any minority group, even one that constitutes an actual majority of human beings. Further, he states there's no way we could sell this movie to his target audience if males between the ages of 18 and 35 without showing some major boobage. He concludes his press release with the questions, how could these posters demean women? I mean, for God's sakes, they show beautiful young women with beautiful young tits. What more could anyone want? When women complain that so often in films the women get younger and younger and neuter, Von Trier responds, that's all I needed to hear. I most definitely intended for the women in this film to get younger and younger and neuter. When the film is finally released, viewers learn that in order to make the film more psychologically complex and, edgy, to use Von Trier's words, the women do not use knitting needles to kill rapists, but rather in what Von Trier openly declares is an homage to the greatest filmmaker of all time, Lars von Trier. They use knitting needles to reproduce a scene from one of his earlier films and mutilate their own genitals. Oh. Oh. I'm just having flashbacks of that. I don't know if you saw, but I could never unsee. Oh my god. Oh. Members of the knitting circle know, however, that there are much better places to put their needles. Susie and Jasmine go for a walk in the park, stepping over goose poop on their way to the lake. Susie says, "I'm very concerned about your boyfriend." "Why?" "I don't know how to ask this," Susie says. "But is he for real?" "Oh yes, it feels so right to me, so real." "No, I mean, does he really exist?" "Exist? Like you or me?" Jasmine giggles, says, "Well, he's got some differences. Like, I'm not going to talk about that. Here's what I'm trying to ask. Have you met him, except for those times you said at the Xanadu?" "Yes, we meet all the time, almost every night." "You do? You haven't told me about that. What's he like?" "Like I said at Grandma Aunt's, he's really changeable." "That's what I don't understand. Do you mean like he's inconsistent? One day nice, the next day angry? That's not a good sign, Jazz." "No, I mean what I said at the nursing home. It's his looks. It's so wonderful. One night I'm hanging out with Brad Pitt, and then a wombat, and lately a centaur. Centaurs are the sexiest." "Jazz, I'm getting very worried about you." "And sometimes when he comes up to me, hearts burst into the room and fly away like little red butterflies." "Jazz, you ask, is he real? It doesn't get any more real than the one, does it?" Billy Bob walks down the stairs of the Mawar office, partly because he never can get quite enough peeks at the August cheesecake from the defunct tire company calendar, and partly because he suspects Zebediah is on the computer again, and presumably up to no good. He's not so worried that Zebediah might be looking at porn. No one in Mawar has ever been interested in anything more than cheesecake, and they're not... They've not even been interested enough in that to update their calendar. For some reason, their leader always seems more interested in updating the 12 monthly Miracles of Jesus calendars. Besides, someone once installed a porn alarm on the computer that would go off anyone typed in a search that matched potential porn triggers, and in the whole year's subscription, the only times it went off were false positives, when someone searched for phrases like the Virgin Mary, inflamed prostate, first having to look up inflamed prostate with an E, which would have been an entirely different health problem. Onan, embarrassingly enough, or David and Bathsheba. This later because the porn alarm considered the scene where David sees Bathsheba bathing on the rooftop too racy. But he still wants to know what he's doing on the computer. Billy Bob peeks around the corner to see Zebediah staring at the screen. Zebediah sees him too, and quickly taps a few times on the keyboard. Billy Bob asks, "What lookest thou at on the computer?" "Nothing." "Let me see." Zebediah shows him. Billy Bob says, "That's just the username and password page. That doesn't do me any good." Zebediah says, "That's the point." He gets up and leaves. But Billy Bob has watched enough detective movies on television to know that most people's usernames and passwords can be discovered in mere moments, and certainly before the next commercial, if chance will merely provide the right clues to set off a brilliant series of semi-logical leaps on the part of the detective. So he looks around the room, sees the cheesecake, and types in tires and round, since that's what tires are. Nothing. He sees a picture of Jesus and types in Jesus and Our Lord and Savior, but that does not work either. He starts to think the detective shows might not be as accurate as he had hoped. But he has the same lucky break they always get in the mystery movies when Zebediah turns on the stereo upstairs and starts to blast. Ted Nugent plays gospel favorites. Billy Bob listens to the first song, How Great Thou Art, thinks about Zebediah's taste in music, types in Wretched for a username, realizes that Zebediah would of course not say that about his own musical tastes, deletes that word and types in How Great Ted Art. He feels comfortable with this, but he still needs a password. He closes his eyes, lets his mind drift. He thinks about Jezebel Jasmine, about the courage Zebediah has to even consider getting so close to an agent of Beelzebub. He thinks about how Zebediah must have... That's it! He types in Holy fucking nads of steel and hits enter. He is shocked by what comes up on the screen. He knows that he and Zebediah need to talk. And they need to talk now. It takes a surprisingly short time for Zebediah to move through Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of having been caught doing something stupid, zooming past defensiveness, blaming someone else, embarrassment, and humiliation, right to the enthusiasm and pride, and it's really cool and everybody else is doing it anyway. Billy Bob says, "Okay, let me get this straight. You pay real money so you can have a second life on a computer?" "Well, I figured since I don't have a life in reality, I may as well have one somewhere. And besides, it's only $10 a month. That's not too much to pay to have a life, is it?" "Brother Zebediah, and it's even better. I own land there." "Own land? On the computer?" "And you should see how much land I own. Look." A few clicks and Zebediah is showing Billy Bob his mansion, complete with 3D moving pictures of Jesus on every wall, and even on the floor. With the floor, Jesus is always deftly stepping out of the way of the user's virtual foot. Despite himself, Billy Bob is impressed. "You've got yourself a nice piece of property, Brother Zebediah, and it only costs me another $100 a month. Wait, you pay real money for a fake house?" "At $35 per plasma donation and only 2 donations per week, I can pay for my monthly rental in only 10 days. That leaves me with all the other donations to use for spending money. How do you think I bought the water into wine fountain for the grand entry hall?" "You trade blood for pixels?" "Yes, but everybody's doing it, aren't they? Isn't that what the whole computer culture is about? Trading real life for virtual life? I'm on the leading edge, Billy Bob. I'm on the front lines of yet another revolution." Billy Bob nods grimly. "Thou dost surely have holy fucking nads of steel. But isn't this blood donation all too much? Doth it not make thee feel really fucking weak?" "Well, I have also been selling sperm to the bank." "Selling sperm to the bank? Unfaithful to Jezebel already." "Jasmine!" "Have you told her?" "No. It's just that sometimes when we are chatting on here..." "You meet her in this computer place?" "Yes, and sometimes when we are chatting here, I start thinking about her that way. I just tell her I have to go to work." Billy Bob thinks a moment. "How much doth thou make for these holy donations?" $100, Brother Billy Bob." $100 a whack. It's good money, my brother. Thou shouldst try it." "But I still do not understand. Good money to buy a house in Computerville. A house that doth not really exist." "It may not exist, Billy Bob, but like you saw, it's really big." Zebediah shows him more of his property, including the swimming pool. He says the pool has an adjustable temperature, so when it's cold in Computerville, I make it an Olympic-sized hot tub, and when it's warm, I turn the pool way down. It feels so good." "Feels? And look what else my character can do." Zebediah pushes a button and suddenly hearts flutter all over the screen and flit away like butterflies. He says, "So whenever I see Jasmine, I can shower her with hearts." He says proudly, "I paid $200 for that ability." Billy Bob's eyes go wide. Zebediah says, "That's only 1 whack in 3 pints of blood, and it sure is pretty." Billy Bob tells their leader. Who calls a Marwar meeting. There it is determined that while they all appreciate Zebediah's creativity in moving to ensnare the heathen Jezebel through getting to know her on a computer, he must in fact call her, and he must in fact see her in real life, no matter how scary this may be for him. They urge him to remember that Jesus and his guardian angels will be with him at every moment, and that while he may sometimes walk afraid, he will never walk alone. He strenuously argues against all of this, saying that his plan only needs more time, and that he has already been saving up for a gilded prison room for her in Computerville, and it would only have taken another couple of months of blood and masturbation before it would be ready. They point out to him that kidnapping her in Computerville would not actually serve their purpose. They need to kidnap her in real life, and it takes a while to convince him of this distinction. At this point, it is clear that Zebediah is not only frightened, but that his pride is hurt over the failure of his other plan. To mollify him, all members of Mawar agree that from this time forward, they will never again call her Jezebel, and that when they play Bible Scrabble, the word Jezebel will only be worth half points. These concessions make Zebediah happy, and help him gird his loins to move forward. Susie and Sam are once again in bed. They are, sadly, once again fully clothed. Susie says to Sam, "Now do you believe that even taking into account the brainwashing and training of our oppressive patriarchal culture, I genuinely want to make love with you?" Sam responds, I sort of believe it. I think we could proceed as long as we're careful. I think that not only should we be absolutely certain that in advance, in the abstract, that we want to make love, but that but that at each step of the way, in the concrete, we agree with each action and verbally acknowledge that we still indeed want it. Susie says, reasonably enough, huh? Sam says, I'll show you. Can I kiss your lips? Oh God, yes. I've only been begging you to start. She grabs him and pulls him on top of her and kisses him passionately. He backs off hurriedly. No, no. You're missing my point. We should each ask consent about every part, like this. Can I touch your arm? Are you kidding me? See? You don't want me to. It's a good thing I asked. No, I mean, really? You're gonna ask each time you touch a new body part? It's the only way I can be sure that you want me to do it. And to be fair, you should ask me as well. Susie sighs. Okay, I want you to feel comfortable. Can I touch your shoulder? I'd love that. Can I touch your hair? Absolutely. Can I kiss your neck? Is that a yes? Yes! Just making sure. Can I touch your chest? Not yet, Sam says. Go a bit slower, please. Can I kiss your fingers? Go for it. Can I run the fingers of my other hand down the inside of your arm? Yes, that would feel good. Their voices fade. Romantic music swells. They caress each other slower and slower, asking about each individual touch, and not getting very far before they both fall asleep. They both snore softly, as cute as kittens. Weeks pass, and we are back at the Marwar headquarters, where the NASCAR Jesuses continue to serenely overlook the three ugliest lamps on the planet. The leader says, the fucking cops won't do their job to stop these devils. The feds aren't doing it, and the commie pinko liberal media certainly doesn't give a rat's ass. It's up to us to do the righteous work of the Lord and smite the wicked. The group responds as one. Amen. Their leader says, Brother Zebediah, it's been weeks since we made our new arrangement. The situation is deteriorating. Why hast thou not yet nabbed Jasmine? I thought you were on the cusp of glory. Zebediah responds, I'm almost there. All praise to the Lord. Their leader says, then why hast thou not brought the hussy home? Zebediah says, you said you'd call her Jasmine. I said I'd not call her Jezebel, and I didn't call her that name. You're cheating. Don't change the subject, Brother Zebediah. You've been out with her 3 times. Do you even have a single testicle? We need her so we can bargain with the heathens. Zebediah says earnestly, I couldn't take her home on the first date. Even for Jesus, it would have been too great a sin. Billy Bob asks, what about the second date? I'm sure you would have been forgiven for that. Zebediah says, just thinking about it made me feel impure. On our 3rd date, I tried to pray for her soul, but Jasmine made disparaging remarks about our Lord. I couldn't countenance that. Billy Bob says, you don't have to like the demon spawn, just bring her home. Zebediah responds, I've been praying my ass off over this, brother. I believe the Lord wanted me to wait. Bringing a woman home on the 4th date is only a minor sin, so I made another date with her for Friday. I am ready for the glory. Their leader says, let me hear an amen. The room explodes with a hearty amen. Their leader says, it's do or die time, Brother Zebediah. Make the Lord proud. Be strong in righteous ass-kickery. We are the last hope for the godly men. Go forth with the fire of the Lord's fury burning in your loins. The men in the room respond with an amen that leaves NASCAR Jesuses rocking back and forth in its wake. Jasmine and Susie are back at the Red Moon's Sacred Gyn Mill Tea House for women of all kinds and kindreds, eating the only edible item on the menu. Jasmine fills in Susie on her recent dates with Zebediah. Susie says, he pretended to pray for your soul? Jasmine responds, I thought it was tasteless, making fun of Christian fundamentalists like that. I told him it was tacky, a little mocking the mentally ill. Besides, isn't that really what he was doing? So, Jazz, why are you going out with him again? I admit he's a little weird, and I'm not sure anymore that he's the one. But he's cute, and maybe I could convince myself that his freaky quirks are charming eccentricities, right? I don't know if I could do that. He seems kind of repulsive. Yeah, but I'm not sure he's quite bad enough for me to not date him. It's easy for you to judge. You've got Sam. It's different for me. I'm almost 23 years old, and even before Zebediah, I hadn't had a boyfriend for a whole 3 months. I don't want to wind up 62 years old alone on the streets, a ranting bag lady. Susie thinks, then comments, getting married is no guarantee that you won't end up alone, a ranting bag lady in the streets. It could happen to anyone. Jasmine sighs, I know. If he keeps being weird, I'll stop seeing him. But I want to give our relationship one more chance. I can't give up yet. I've invested so many daydreaming hours figuring out the color scheme of our wedding. Nick hasn't left Bridget's for months. She doesn't have an attic, so he hasn't been able to hide there. Nor has he kept his promise not to make a peep. Mainly, he's sat in front of the television, obsessively watching news of the knitting needle phenomenon and getting on Bridget's nerves, as she has gotten on his. But the non-relationship has survived as well as could have been hoped. As Franz and Chet chatter ominously on the TV, Bridget picks up her tote bag and car keys. She says, I'm going out, Nick. Do you want anything? Where are you going? Nick asks. Bridget responds, slightly annoyed. Various errands. When will you be back? He asks. Nick, I know you're stir-crazy, stuck in my home as a fugitive, but let's not forget who we are, okay? We're very independent people. We like that about each other. If you start asking me where I'm going and when I'll be back every time I go anywhere, it's going to depress me more than I already am with you here. I'm starting to feel like you're my mother, or worse, my husband. I'm sorry. I was thinking about how much I love my husband and how, like, we do this and it's fine. We have more of the Lawrence thing going on, but it's funny. It's because we totally do that, and I'll never stop. He says, I'm sorry, I know, I can't seem to help myself. She responds, it sneaks up on people when they live together. She's, fuck yeah, it does. Like, if I left the home and he didn't ask me where I was going or when I would be back, the whole time I would be gone. He would be a nervous wreck. He'd be worried, you know. That's what people who care about each other do when they are responsible for each other. And I got the closest you can get to a community relationship. It's not like we have, like, the mother's clan home where someone's looking out for you at all times. The best you can get is, like, either your mother's clan home or your significant others, and I lucked out. Anyway, I love their relationship. It's so funny. Oh, he says, I'm sorry, I know, I can't seem to help myself. She responds, it sneaks up on people when they live together. I never wanted this to happen. We're becoming just like cranky, boring, married people with lives stripped of charm and mystery. Ugh! I don't want us to lose the magic, Bridget. I want the romance, the hot lust, the fun. She says, let's try this again. I'm going out. Do you want anything? Yes! We're out of cookies and I'm desperate. The round ones with the flaky dough and the strawberry filling. About this big? I know the ones. They smile and she goes out the door. He turns back to the TV. The president addresses the nation in a press conference. He says, we urge patience, vigilance, and calm. I assure you, the American people, that the knitting needle killings are nearly under control and will be stopped. The president's wife, standing behind him, starts laughing maniacally. The press roars with questions. Two big men with wires coiling out of their ear appear and rush the president's wife off stage. The president continues. In fact, I am honored to announce that we have a new ally and partner to work with us to fight this war on terror. Al-Qaeda has pledged to dictate the full force of its organization in this effort. The promises, or threats, of the President of the United States notwithstanding, the Knitting Circle movement has now gone beyond stopping rape. The movement wants to go all the way to liberate women. Now that women have gotten a taste of their own power, the uprising has become unstoppable. It spreads all over the world. It's time for a montage. To your favorite feminist, revolutionary, internationalist anthem. In massive protests and riots, women overturn armored trucks containing yarn and needles. Women battle police, dodge tear gas and rubber bullets, then real bullets. They fire back. Women blow up malls, fast food restaurants, and chain stores, including stores selling women's fashion. especially stores selling women's fashion. In Japan, women wearing knitted Hello Kitty hats chase men in Western business suits. In an airport in Thailand, women and children wield needles as the German businessmen flee. In Afghanistan, women in knitted burqas chase bearded men and foreign soldiers amid the rubble. In the Near East, Israeli and Palestinian women chase Israeli settlers and soldiers and Palestinian men. In Africa, women chase men down a dusty street. The same scenes unfold in Latin America and Europe. In Antarctica, 3 female scientists chase 3 male scientists through a field of penguins. A woman wearing a knitted spacesuit cover floats outside the space shuttle and aims a needle at a man who is also outside the space shuttle. He floats away, leaking precious air, never to corner her in the cockpit again. But there remains one final threat to the liberation movement. Chapter 10. Zebediah and Jasmine stand outside the Marwar headquarters. It looks like a normal dumpy house in a normal dumpy neighborhood. He uses a key to unlock the door. Meanwhile, Jasmine plans the improvements she would make. Fresh paint, a few flowers, in the event that she and Zeb get married one day. Zebediah says to Jasmine, "I'm kind of tired of talking about me." She looks up at him, anticipating that at long last a question, any sort of question, about her life. He continues, "Why don't you talk about me for a while?" I just saw the Barbie movie for the they finally put it on the streaming services, and I was like, oh, well, I'll give it a try. You know, I try not to support scabbers, but I was like, fuck it, I keep hearing shit and it's free, so I'll just check it out. And this is it made me think of the let me play guitar at you. Just I laughed so hard. Who hasn't had a guitar played at them? Good lordess. Oh, okay. He turns on the lights. Jasmine moves into the living room. He closes and locks the door, then flicks shut 9 more deadbolts. Jasmine hears the clicks and looks back at him, slightly troubled. He ignores her and walks into the kitchen. She hears him rummaging around. She sits on a chair, notices the lamps. Those are even more troubling than the locks. Zebediah returns from the kitchen holding rope and duct tape. Jasmine frowns. "I'm not into that." The 4 other Mawar men come out of the bedroom wearing their Mawar shirts. Jasmine's eyes widen. She says, "I'm definitely not into that." Mawar leader points at her. You may not be into God, but God is definitely into you." A few minutes later, Jasmine is tied to a chair with duct tape over her mouth. The leader says, "Thank you, Brother Zebediah, for your holy contribution to our glorious mission. Good work." Billy Bob turns to face Jasmine. "You, Missy, have become a lucky pawn in a great chess game of the Lord." Jasmine looks puzzled. Billy Bob points to his t-shirt logo. "We are Mawar, men against women against rape." Jasmine's eyes widen in terror and she attempts a strangled scream. Billy Bob continues, "Chill out, sinner. We're not rapists. We're men of God defending the holy law as it is written." Jasmine looks puzzled. Billy Bob says, "Where in the 10 holy fucking commandments does it ever say, 'Thou shalt not rape'? Huh?" The answer is, it doesn't. In fact, the whole fucking Bible is filled with rapes that fulfill God's merciful will. We will not tolerate heresy from a bunch of stupid demons, infidels, heathens, women. Jasmine rolls her eyes in disbelief. Billy Bob rips the tape from Jasmine's mouth. He says, "You're going to call off your people." She spits. "Or what are you going to do?" Billy Bob looks meaningfully into the kitchen. Susie and Sam are in her bedroom, still, pathetically enough, fully dressed. The phone rings. Susie answers it. She hears Jasmine's voice yelling, in tears and with terror, "They're going to force me to make pies for the church bake sale." I fucking love this book. Oh my god. Hours later, Susie paces, distraught, while Sam stares at the wall, angry and determined. Distractedly, hitting a pillow over and over. Susie says, "We have to get her out of there. They're making her bake? Soon she'll be scrubbing and ironing. It will not stop." Sam continues to stare. Then he looks at Susie. Susie can see in his eyes the beginning of an idea. At last he says to her, "Let me go in. I can take these guys on. I shall challenge them to a duel." The next day, the members of Mawar are gathered at headquarters. Their leader says, "That asshole challenged us to a what?" Billy Bob answers, "A duel." Their leader, "A duel?" Billy Bob, "A motherfucking duel." Their leader, "Fuck. We can't get out of that." Zebediah asks, "Why not?" Billy Bob answers him, "The whole honor thing. Some asshole challenges you to a duel. You don't refuse unless you're a fucking pussy." Zebediah says, "Oh yeah, the honor thing." They silently ruminate on honor for a few minutes before their leader says, "Which one of us is going to take on this motherfucker? Which one of us has the balls to kick some heathen pro-feminist ass for Christ?" "There's really only one choice," says Billy Bob. Everyone looks at the biggest, baddest guy in the room. Ezekiel stands up. He's a mountain of muscled flesh. He smiles and cracks his knuckles. Picture an old gym. A really old gym. An extremely old gym. No, not quite as old as the one you're imagining, but about 3/4 of the way there. The bricks on the walls are chipped and decaying. They're stained by decades of sweat and cigar smoke and broken dreams of broken men. At one time, the room may have been brightly lit, but time, incompetence, and unwillingness to pay for a good union electrician have combined to render half of the overhead lights useless. Or maybe it's just that the bulbs need to be replaced. In any case, the place is poorly lit. In the center of the room is a boxing ring. The canvas is decaying and stained by decades of sweat and smoke and the broken dreams of... Oh wait, we've already used that description for bricks. Anyway, the canvas is rotting and discolored by tens of years of perspiration and stodgy ash from the busted aspirations of busted men. Or maybe the floor is decomposing like Beethoven in his grave, and is as tainted as the Puritans made Hester Prynne, tainted by night after night and year after year of broken-nosed and broken-hearted men beating each other to a pulp while other men with hearts as cold as their cash cheered them on and jeered as the tattered fragments of their dreams spattered like their blood across the fabric of the flooring in this arena to serve a spectacle as gaudy and horrifying and popular as those of the Roman Colosseum. Or maybe the canvas floor is aging gracefully, suffused with the sweat and blood and hopes and dreams of young men. It is carrying these hopes and dreams long after the men themselves have grown old and tired, carrying these hopes and dreams to inspire a new generation of men to train, to hone their skills, to strengthen their bodies and their wills and their intuition, to learn to listen, always to the muse of the ring. And in so doing, this humble canvas has helped to initiate these men into a brotherhood and tradition, and even a form of spirituality that stretches farther back than the men can remember, and stretches farther into the future than anyone can guess, leading these humble men into an immortality of sorts, and has done the same for generation after generation of those in attendance, those who witness and also worship through this sport of kings. All of this may or may not have been true a few days ago, but in preparation for the duel, the Mawar folks all headed down to the sperm donation center to collect some dough. The people at the sperm bank wondered why their leader brought with him an illustrated Bible and used the money to buy another canvas floor for the boxing ring to replace the old one, which was falling apart. On the walls of this dimly lit gym are posters advertising some of the greatest fights in history, none of which took place here. Oh, fucking hate the Mandingo show. Oh my god, it's just a sorrow. Okay, Ali versus Frazier, Lewis versus Smelling, Johnson versus Jeffries, Hegler versus Hearns, Jesus versus Temptation, the Temptations versus the Supremes, Rock and Roll versus Disco, St. Augustine versus his unruly penis, capitalists vanquishing their consciences, industrialization versus life on Earth. Whew. The members of Mawar sit on folding chairs, murmuring excitedly and waving cigars. At one side of the ring is Jasmine, the prize, tied to a chair. In the ring is Ezekiel. He wears a garish wrestling outfit with mask, cape, and boots. His huge belt buckle features the Mawar logo, and Mawar is stenciled crookedly across his chest. He carries a big Bible, the 1976 Bicentennial Edition, with an embossed Liberty Bell on the cover in one hand, and his lucky crucifix in the other. Facing him is Sam, who is also wearing a wrestling outfit with mask, cape, and boots. Under the cape, he wears a tweed jacket with leather elbow patches. He sports glasses, has a pipe clenched between his teeth, and carries a textbook called Introduction into I'm not a philosopher, obviously. Exegetical thought? Exegetical? I've never heard this word pronounced out loud, so help me out if you can. A referee stands between them. He looks like Uncle Wiggily and carries a candy-striped cane in one hand, a whistle in the other. He puts the whistle to his mouth and blows one sharp blast. The Mawar men stop their murmuring and put down their refurbished cigars. After splurging on the canvas, they're going to be a little short on cash until they can replenish their precious bodily fluids. So they've been getting refurbished cigars made from the finest and fattest butts found in the trash cans behind Fat Gordy's cigar bar. Every Tuesday night is ladies' night. Hey ladies, get your fat butts in here. And with our prices, you can be sure we're not blowing any smoke up your ass. Oof. Into the room walk 4 women with highly styled frosted hair. They make their way to the sidelines, smiling and smiling and smiling. They wear short aprons and tight sweaters with lawar appliqued across their chest. Each wears around her neck the second most precious piece of jewelry after her wedding ring, her 12-karat gold hand-scripted pendant reading, "Try God." They carry toilet brushes and feather dusters. One of them holds up her arms for attention. The others fall into line, hands on hips. The first one says, "Ready, set." Jasmine tugs on the arm of Billy Bob, standing next to her. "Who are they?" Billy Bob says, "Cheerleaders, duh." "No, I mean, who are they?" "They're Lawar, Ladies Against Women Against Rape." "But who are they?" "Our wives." "Ah." The Lawar women jump and wave around their cleaning implements as they perform a cheer. "Give me a G." The men roar, "G." "Give me an O." "O." "Give me a D." "D." "And what do you got?" "The one whose name we cannot take in vain. Go, Gawar!" Gawar must die. I can't. Every time I read this, I think about it. Gawar must die. It's so funny. Okay, Gawar? Jasmine asks. "Can't you figure out anything?" "That's God against women against rape," Billy Bob says. Oh, my cat is being too adorable. I have to pet her real quick. Oh, baby. Hi. Oh, my sleepy girl. She came in here to, be with me, but I'm being all loud and obnoxious, so. Poor girl. Hi, baby. I love you. Okay. Alright, I think we're good. God against women against rape, Billy Bob says. The women try another cheer afterwards, lustily chanting, "We've got the spirit, how about you?" But there are no fans on our other side, with or without the spirit, to respond, so that one fizzles. A referee calls them all to attention. He then says to the combatants, "This will be a clean fight. There will be no headbutting, no hitting below the belt, no ad hominem attacks, and, following the rules set forth by Jürgen Habermas, speakers may only assert what they truly believe and may not dispute a proposition or norm not under discussion without providing a reason for wanting to do so. Further, we have been given specific dispensation from our Lord and Savior to allow you not to turn the other cheek. And finally, of course, no biting. Do you agree?" Both fighters nod. The referee continues, "Return to your corners and come out swinging. May the best man, by which we also mean the most holy man of God, win." Both fighters return to their corners. The leader of Mawar rings a bell. Both fighters step forward to the center. Toward the center. Ezekiel lands the first blow by stating triumphantly, "Deuteronomy 21:11. It says there that when God helps you kick some heathen ass and you see some really hot chick, you go and take her home to be your wife." The Mawar and Lawar crowd cheers. Sam nods thoughtfully. The cheering grows even louder. Sam says, "So you're equating rape with marriage?" The crowd clearly thinks this blow landed directly on Ezekiel's solar plexus, and they fall silent, stunned. But Ezekiel is unfazed. He says, "Read some books, Four Eyes. Deuteronomy 21:14 answers that one. If she's not a good lay, you can send her packing back to mommy and daddy. It's like some Harry Belafonte shit. But can't sell her as a slave. So rape only equals marriage if she's fucking hot. The referee waves his candy-striped cane and says, 2 points, Ezekiel. Ezekiel moves in close for a body blow. Ready for another one? The whole fucking story of Genesis 19. More cheering. He puts home the attack. Lot lived in. Angels came to town, and then them fucking sodomites, get it? Wanted to rape them angels, but Lot said, no, you can't have them angels. Instead, you can have my 2 daughters. Did Lot pull out any knitting needles? Hell no, bub. God would have turned his ass to salt. Sam looks dazed. Ezekiel moves in for the knockout punch. Now let's go back to Deuteronomy, academic boy. How about a little Deuteronomy 22 action? The whole fucking chapter. Sam is up against the ropes. Jasmine shouts, do something! Ezekiel offers a flurry of verses. How about the story in Numbers 31, or the 2 Samuel 12:11 through 14, Judges 21? You want more, boy? You had enough? Sam stutters. Ezekiel is relentless. His fury is staggering, Sam. Ezekiel says there's plenty more where that came from. We got us some Zechariah 14 verses 1 and 2. We got us some... Sam leans over the ropes and says to Jasmine, I have a secret weapon at my disposal. Ezekiel hears him, crows, bring it on! Sam staggers away from Ezekiel, but becomes more steady as he approaches his corner. After he takes a standing 8 count, he regains his composure, sits on his stool, crosses one leg over another, European style, puffs contemplatively on his empty pipe, then takes the pipe out of his mouth. He looks absent-mindedly at it for a moment before he begins to speak. I must reject not only your logic and your sources, but even your epistemology itself. We must begin with the notion. Ezekiel says, huh? As though hit with a philosophical blow to the gut. Or maybe it makes as little sense to him as it does to anyone else. Jasmine says, your secret weapon is a notion? Sam doesn't seem to be worried. As I'm sure you know, in his Shorter Logic, first published in 1830, Hegel wrote that the notion is what is meditated through itself, with itself, and with itself. It is a mistake to imagine that the objects which form the context of our mental ideas come first, and that our subjective agency then supervenes, and, by the aforesaid operation of abstraction, and by colligating the points possessed in common by the objects, frames notions of them. You see how this applies, do you not? Ezekiel looks stupefied. The referee waves his candy-striped cane around briskly and blows the whistle. He says sharply, 2 points taken away, no Hegel. Sam doesn't hesitate. He says no loss. If we're going to speak of God's support of rape, we must speak of the existence of God. For this, I prefer Wittgenstein's approach to the truth as manifested by the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, where he stated quite clearly, and this is my own modest translation, that according to the nature of truth operations, in the same way as out of elementary propositions arise their further functions. The referee shakes his head to stir himself awake and has to blow 3 times on his whistle to get it to make a sort of poof sound. He says sleepily, 2 more points lost. No Wittgenstein. Sam continues calmly, patiently, really hitting his academic stride. Well then, let us accept that before we can talk of rape, we must talk of the metaphysics, indeed, the meta-symbology of free will. And before we can speak of free will, we must speak of, if I may coin a phrase, the meta-epistemological exegetic dialecticism. Dialecticalism. Good Lord. Ezekiel is having a hard time standing. Sam continues. I'm sure that we all know that, as Kierkegaard wrote, in the interest of ever more highly specialized deliberation, the biblical exegetics are nothing. So this is why you don't teach children with phonetics. This is why, right here. Exegetics are nothing if not specialized. Also, English is just a pill. Good gracious. If we were German, this would all make perfect sense. Are nothing if not specialized, which, by forgetting, well, I'll skip over that and dash right to the point where we attain. Sam looks around, then continues, more and more slowly and quietly, as if a child falling asleep. A dubious perfectibility by being able to become anything at all. There is complete silence in the gym, except for the ticking of a far-off clock, and the slight hiss of steam in the pipes, and the faint sound of distant traffic, and the louder sound of closer traffic, and helicopters flying overhead, and jets taking off from the nearby airport, and the thunderous snoring of Ezekiel and several members of the Mawar and Lawar. Even Uncle Wiggily snores fitfully, leaning on his candy-striped cane. Sam quietly climbs through the ropes and out of the ring. He tiptoes to Jasmine. With one hand he gently shakes her awake. With his other hand he holds a finger to his lips. She grins as he unties her. They step quietly around the sleeping Mawar and Lawar members and out the door. Once outside, they start running. The sensible response to Jasmine's dramatic rescue is to gather at the house of the most sensible person and eat cake and ice cream. So, the core members of the knitting circle and friends gather at Gina's house. Jasmine is hugged by everyone in turn. Sam did a splendid job at the duel, she gushes. Sam blushes and smiles bashfully as Susie beams with pride. Susie says he's just doing what he does best. Gina raises her cake and toast. That was the enemy's last hope. They've got nothing left. They're finished. We've won. Everyone cheers. Jasmine leans over to Christine and says, and you know, his teeth weren't even really that good. A few days later, Sandy knocks at Bridget's door. From inside, Sandy hears the sound of Sophie Schral and the rest of the White Rose Orchestra performing The Ride of the Valkyries. Nick peers between the curtains and sees her. He panics, ducks below the window, hiding. Sam calls out to him, I saw you, Nick. Don't worry, I'm not here to arrest you. He sheepishly opens the door. Sandy asks how he is. I'm going crazy locked up in here. She replies, this is your lucky day. I'm here to tell you that you can come out now. His eyes widen. He asks, what about those cops who want to arrest me? Who want to shoot me? Sandy says simply, they're gone. He raises his eyebrows. Sandy pantomimes stabbing herself in the heart with a knitting needle. Nick grins. Sandy grins back. She says, I'm the highest ranking cop left. In fact, I've used my new authority to shut down the police station. I've turned it into the Community Self-Defense Academy. Our new mission is to arm the community for self-defense and train everyone in the use of knitting needles. You know, to preserve the peace. Nick responds, I love it! And I'm free! He runs outside and dances on the lawn, a sort of combination of a Vienna-style waltz and the Charleston. Sandy smiles. Would you like to volunteer at the academy? We could use someone like you, with your valuable experience of being a lone secret turtle agent of death. Nick corrects her. That's undercover secret agent Lone Wolf. Whatever. You want to? I'll come right now. Nick skips to her car, a red Corvette, and opens the passenger door. Bridget comes to her door and sees Nick leaving. She calls out, Nick, where are you? She stops herself abruptly. Nick asks, what, Bridget? She says nothing. Bye. Have fun. I will. Thanks. Susie and Sam are on Susie's bed. They are, if you can believe it, still fully clothed, except that by now they have at least taken off their socks. Sam says to Susie, I know you say you want to, but how do I know that you really absolutely positively want to? How can I be sure you're not just allowing it because you'd feel guilty for rejecting me, or because you want me to be happy even if you aren't, or as a favor, or because you're being kind, or because you're rewarding me for doing the dishes, or for some other bad reason that if I knew about would be depressing and humiliating? She responds, during this encounter so far, have you heard me sigh even once in a burdened sort of way? No. Did I say, I want to make love to you in the same tone of voice when I say something like, oh, I'll take out the garbage? Sam smiles. Not exactly. Does my mood seem sort of blah, ho-hum, or does my voice seem warm and enthusiastic when I say, I'm mad for you. I adore you. I love your hot, delicious body, especially with my arms and legs wrapped around it. You seem fairly warm and enthusiastic. Kind of. Can you repeat all that so I can make sure? She gives him a playful shove. She says, now, to make this very easy for you, when a basketball player hits a home run to win the Super Bowl, and when he runs around with his arms waving, grinning, and laughing, can you tell if he's really absolutely positively interested in playing the game, or is he just going through the motions because he doesn't want to hurt the other team's feelings, or because they did the dishes? Sam muses. I think if he kissed the other team in a passionate way and maybe tore off their uniforms in his eagerness to get as close to them as possible and licked their ears, then I'd really be absolutely positively sure he wanted to play. They kiss. And finally the clothes begin to come off. Rather quickly. I do believe they set a US and perhaps world record for the fastest ever removal of clothes. Oh, baby. It's not going to be a kitten for very much longer. Okay. Bridget is walking toward the cheese factory. Today is Gaperon Day, and the smell of cream, peppercorns, and garlic is already making her salivate. She's humming and swinging her tote bag. She sees people laughing and smiling. She sees couples of all gender combinations, oof, I can't believe they used that word instead of sex, holding hands, walking, sharing milkshakes with 2 straws. She sees someone she recognizes from pre-knitting circle fashion advertisements as a supermodel eating a huge piece of cake. She walks past burned-out porn stores and high-fashion boutiques. She walks past a garbage can that overflows with broken high-heeled shoes. Bridget smiles and says hello to passers-by, and they return her greetings. Jasmine and Susie walk along another street, also on their way to the cheese factory. They've never before tasted this particular cheese, but the smell is wafting through the city. It's so good, they know they will love it. In the sunlight, 2 beautiful young women, filled with energy and confidence and lofty dreams, shimmer, as they always do, from the top of their glossy hair down to the flashes of iridescent color on their toenails. Glittering brightest of all are their happy eyes, as they swing their tote bags of knitting supplies back and forth and chatter together about grand plans. Susie's boyfriend, who is as adorable as a whole litter of soft baby bunnies, and Jasmine's new girlfriend. Well, we're not actually sure if she's her new girlfriend since she hasn't actually called, but she has texted 07734, which after much puzzling, Jasmine discovers spells hello upside down. And they have met online several times, and she's the cutest woman in the world, after Susie and Jasmine herself, of course, who sometimes looks like a gorgeous bird and sometimes a willow tree. The women pass a building under construction. A construction worker notices them. He yells, "Hey, hey!" They turn, smiling. Jasmine says, "Yes." He points at them, says, "Your yarn. It's dragging on the ground." Jasmine thanks him and tucks the yarn back in her bag. All of the original knitters are at the cheese factory. Nick is also there, as is Marilyn, as is Sandy. A plate of the gaperon has been left out for all of them, with very plain crackers that don't compete with the exquisitely subtle taste of the cheese. They are eating slowly, savoring each bite. When they finish this act of worship, they begin to knit. Bridget says, "Everything turned out magnificently. It's a happy ending." Jasmine quickly responds, "For a real happy ending, we need wedding bells. There are always wedding bells at the happy ending. From Cinderella to Snow White to Bridget Jones' Diary, wedding bells signify a definite happy ending. You can't have a happy ending without them. Come on, Bridget and Nick. We're counting on you." Bridget says, "I don't hear any wedding bells. Do you hear any wedding bells, Nick?" Nick puts down the cheese he was nibbling. He gets on one knee. He says to her, "Bridget, I love you very much. Will you marry me anyway? Will you make us miserable slaves to each other for the rest of our lives?" Bridget gets tears in her eyes and answers, "Oh, my darling, I love you way too much to do that to either one of us. I'd rather get a knitting needle through the heart." Nick exclaims, "I knew you'd say no! This is the moment I've always dreamed of. You've made me the happiest man in the world." He throws his arms around her. Bridget turns to the group and says, "And that's our happy ending." Romantic music swells, white doves fly, and rose petals fall from the sky, or at least the ceiling, as Bridget and Nick gently kiss. Abruptly the music stops. Everyone in the cheese factory notices its absence. Gina turns to Bridget. "What do you mean, ending? Okay, we stopped rape, we empowered women. What about the rest?" Who was it? I think it was Gail Dines, who was like, "Empowerment means I got mine, fuck you." I think that's so funny. And true. Okay, what about the rest? Marilyn asks, "The rest?" Gina says, "Sure. Now that we're all empowered and everything, what are we going to do with that? The real world didn't need rapists. As far as they don't overlap, does the real world need CEOs, politicians, fast food restaurants, fashion magazine publishers, dictators, advertising, industrialists, priests, generals? Marilyn whines in a way that only teenagers can whine. Mom, don't you ever get tired? They all laugh, eat cheese, and continue talking and knitting. Marilyn, much older now, stands in front of the classroom. She is talking to her students. She says, "My mom and her friends didn't set out to change the world. All they wanted to do was make fabulous sweaters. But it led to much more than that. Now we have a beautiful existence. No more rape, no more war, freedom from all the horrors and injustices of capitalism. And, though that is all theoretical to you thus far, even sex is better. For now we've put our knitting needles back on the shelf, but we remember where they are, just in case." Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this book as much as I have, because I love this book. It's so funny. You know, and I don't have to agree with absolutely everything it says to appreciate its glory, because there's just so much glory. They did a wonderful, wonderful thing making it. And if anybody wants to make this comedy, it would make such a good movie. So, they could probably use the Skrilla, too. Alright. Until next time. Lots of love out there.